What's going on, guys? Today we're going to talk about wrist injuries. Common plague for lifters of all disciplines: Olympic lifters, powerlifters, crossfitters, bodybuilders. Some athletes will even suffer from wrist injuries. Now, a lot of time, money is spent on protecting the wrist through range of motion of flexion and extension, as to not load that wrist through too much end range of either range of motion. But a lot of times the injury hinges more so on a movement of the wrist called deviation. So the wrist can flex and extend, pronate and supinate, but also deviate, which is more of like a lateral movement. So there's radial deviation and ulnar deviation. It's the ulnar deviation under load that usually causes the most damning wrist injuries and the kind of the biggest pain in the ass to get rid of over time. So the best bet is to know how to prevent it from a positioning standpoint. So loading wrist extension with ulnar deviation is going to lead to an injury of a piece of soft tissue called your triangular fibrocartilage complex. So sort of almost think of it like a soft tissue meniscus, almost as like a space holder between your ulna and your first row of carpals in your wrist. It's what allows you to actually have more ulnar deviation than radial deviation. You have more of like a bony osseous block through that row of carpals and the distal end of the radius at the thumb, so you can't radially deviate as much as you can ulnar deviate. Now, how does this present itself? So indoctrinated into amateur level bodybuilders, powerlifters, is the idea of grip width and pressing, right? So the wider the bench grip, the more shoulders you're going to use, the less elbow travel, the more delts, the less tricep. The opposite is also true. As we bring that grip inward, more triceps, more elbow travel, we're going to be using a lot more flexion extension through the elbow. So most people get carried away with this. So they think it's dose dependent, where if some is good, more must be better. So if wider is better for my delts, then I'll go even wider and it'll be best for my delts. Or closer is good for my triceps, then even closer or closest will be best for my triceps. So it's the close grip that's going to lead to that ulnar deviation, right? So if I'm grabbing a bar at shoulder width, no problems, I can go through flexion extension. But if I'm inside shoulder width, now by the time I get to that bottom position, we've caused compression at that triangular fibrocartilage complex at the lateral side or the ulnar side of the wrist. So when going through close grip bench, make sure that it's no closer than this, or any grip width, which will allow you to not have to deviate through that plane of movement as you go through any sort of lift, whether that be bench press or overhead pressing. Usually more common with those lifts fixed to the medium of the barbell, where dumbbells can allow the wrist to stay in a neutral position and not deviate radial or ulnar. So next time you're in lifting, you're pressing, make sure not just to be mindful of the position of the wrist through extension and flexion, but also radial and ulnar deviation as a way to either compress or stretch. So radial deviation can lead to a stretch of that fibrocartilage complex at the side of the wrist. So keep that in mind next time you're in the gym. We'll see you next time.